and welcome back to Mortgage Talk. Today we have a very special topic today. It's actually one that I've been waiting to get into since we started this podcast. But before we start and we get into all the details, if you guys have any questions and want to reach out to us, you can contact us at 760-669-7813. And all the listeners on the radio, make sure you check out our YouTube channel at Mortgage Talk Podcast. If you guys watch, you can see us pointing at the camera and making all of our funny little faces.
Yes. So recapping, we went through really we're speaking to home buyers, first time home buyers, anybody who's ever thought about buying a house, because we really preach around here. For most of us, it starts with the house you're living in.
Right. So this also applies to, you said, current homeowners too.
Current homeowners, obviously, who want to think about investing. It's kind of like everything out there, all the education out there that I'm seeing is to invest in real estate. You start with the house you live in. If you don't own the house you live in, how are you going to invest in real estate? Most people who have money, that's where money makes money, they say. Mm-hmm. You hear about money makes money. But we talked about of course, if you have more money, you could actually, you can make more moves. We have to use the borrowed money system. We're going to talk about
the borrowed money system. And reality, all it is leverage. If you can meet the 3 qualifying factors to get the leverage to get more houses, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, and
it's a faster way. And let's say you had $300,000 in the bank and you wanted to go buy a house, you're going to spend your whole wad on that house if you're using cash versus maybe spending a portion of it using borrowed money.
Exactly. You don't want to get rid of all your liquidable cash flow or your buying power, we call it.
Absolutely.
Also what you can qualify to buy a home is your buying power. So we were talking earlier about, when rates were really good and really low, we were in a seller's market for years. Why? Because inventory. There was not a lot of inventory. We still have a housing crisis.
I was going to say there's still not a lot of inventory
especially in California. So we've seen buying power drop quite a bit, but we haven't seen the values drop with that. Why? Because people are holding on. There's not enough houses for people.
And for those people saying, well, prices did go down a little bit, they may have leveled out a little, but they didn't drop as dramatically.
Yes.
As they should have.
Exactly. They're still holding really record values for homeowners.
Absolutely. Especially in this area where we live in the high desert. It seems like everything's priced pretty high.
Exactly. So what advantages, again, and we always hear the fear mongering, it's when is the best time for a first-time home buyer? First-time home buyers. If you would have purchased when rates were really low, you would have been spending an extra $10,000 to $20,000 in extra money to buy the house.
We went over what those costs were in our last video of ours too.
Correct, because sellers weren't helping out with costs when rates were low.
Well, there was bidding wars. If you wanted them to help out with cost, aka seller credits, they'd be like, okay, we'll go to this guy who doesn't want that.
Yes, and we've had an inventory issue for a long time, for years, and it's been the case. Sellers haven't been giving up seller credits to help with the buyer's closing cost when buying a home for a long time. Well, it's been happening now. So that's what's caught up, is to buy a house prior, you not only were you competing, but you were competing for, really similar to, a little higher prices, but you not only had to cover the down payment, but you had to cover the closing cost. People who got really low paid, they do what's called a buy down and try to get even lower because rate affects the payment more. Well, right now we have examples to where the money these first-time home buyer has saved, it's going to take 3 years minimum for that little higher payment to really cover what they saved in closing cost, what the average buyer was paying out of pocket literally early in 2022 before the rates started really going up.
And let's just like look at that. Wow, what a huge benefit and a cost saver seller credits are. I mean, oh my goodness, the power really is in the buyer's hands again versus the sellers.
Yes, that's thousands of dollars you don't have to pay.
Thousands of dollars.
So you have
Seriously.
and we have very similar inventory where we had Bobby Tarango on. His shows are posted. He talks about the inventory. He's going to be on, I think, in March or end of February. We're going to have him on.
Just to give us again an update on what we had previously talked about. If you guys want to see what we previously talked about with him, all the stats of a healthy market and stuff like that, what is title and escrow, go check out the YouTube channel, Mortgage Talk Podcast, and we have all of our old shows up there.
Yes, he is. If you're a realtor in the high desert, or looking in the high desert, you're looking anywhere in California, Nevada, and Arizona, you're welcome to call. You're welcome to call me and call us. However, high desert specifically, Bobby Tarango is going to give us all the data, and he goes and talks to all the realtors and all the top offices out here. So any realtor in the high desert knows Bobby Tarango, and his partner Mike we're going to have on as well. They're both going to come on.
Our names are also Bobby.
So what's the difference is, okay, rates are higher, inventory is the same, it's not improving, people are holding on tight. Mm-hmm. So why has it turned into where it's less competition for buyers? Well, buyers there's less buyers. Because if a buyer qualified for $300,000 in the high desert early in 2022, they now qualify for $200,000 or less on average.
That's how much the rates have affected what you could purchase. What you could afford that's what it affected when rates went up. That's how much you could afford.
Ultimately, that's why there's less buyers right now, as they fell out of the market, especially in our area. But guess what?
But you combine that with the fact that prices still are relatively high. You know, it makes for not a lot of people buying a home.
I can tell you since 1998, prices get to a certain point and peak. Yeah, they dip down, but they always stay at a certain level and then they keep going up. We haven't seen it reverse since the Great Depression. I've seen the charts. So we're not going to see, in the high desert, we had it good for a long time, but man, on average, they're 300 plus to get a decent home in the high desert.
Oh yeah, anything 300 below is practically a steal.
And even as you're going out, the good thing is there's a big high desert. There's still homes in the twos. There's still homes in the twos. But once
you can find them.
Once that price level point hits a certain point, with cost and living expenses, inventory, what's the famous, supply and demand. You got all these fear mongers trying to talk first time home buyers out of ownership. Get a little political here. You hear it all over. You'll own nothing and be happy. No.
Yeah.
There's nothing like owning your own house. Nobody can tell you nothing.
Your own home base.
It's your home.
That's where you go. You're not paying somebody else's mortgage. You're paying it towards yourself, your own equity.
The pride of home ownership is you'll never go. I always say once you own, you never go back. Even if something happens, you always want to go back and own a home.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
9 times out of 10, one home leads to another. You're never going backwards. The equity people gain. Let's get back to, the home buyer passing up the opportunity. Why do you think all the investors are out there? Invest. Well, first-time home buyer, guess what? If you can pull it off and afford it and find that house, when the market is so-called good and rates are low again, what do you think prices are going to do? Go down or up? What do you think you're going to be able to do with that equity? You think you're going to be able to sell and make that money to get a better house? Maybe take advantage of, we always talk about first-time home buyers, taking advantage of the lower rates and refinancing in the future. All of a sudden, on average, people save $500 to $1,000 once rates really go. If we ever see that 2s and 3s again,
Yeah.
will we see that again?
If you ask me, I don't think we're going to see it within the next few years. I think if it tanked once, it could do it again. If that showed that it's not impossible, but I think it's going to be a long time before that ever happens again, if it does. People say it's a one-time phenomenon, but if it happened once, it's going to do it again eventually.
Yeah, and we're going to get into choosing the right rate. Before '08 crash, we would sell you on a rate because the loan originator made extra commission on the rebates.
This is before 2008.
Correct.
After that '08 crash, now when you choose the right rate
There's
or a
that.
higher rate, that is actually turned into rebate and not commission. That was actually called the anti-steering mortgage loan originator compensation rule that passed. Was it Dodd-Frank or something passed
Through the
that?
Dodd-Frank.
Through the Dodd-Frank Act?
So hey, buyers, first-time home buyers, everybody out there, a bank or lender has to give you at least 3 rates to choose from on the day you lock in. Everybody's heard, oh, rates change every day. Everybody's heard, you got to lock in that rate. Well, what does that mean? The interest rates themselves don't change. What's changing? So next to each rate, think of a chart from the lowest to highest rate. And every rate in between, 0.125, every 1/8% from the lowest to highest, and all the rates in between. What's changing is next to each rate is a market price. There's a price next to each interest rate. And those prices are what gets better or worse every day, which affects what the buyer or borrower chooses.
So if you had a table, a chart, and you had rates from 1 to 10, and next to each of those rates, there's a price tag next to it.
Correct.
Now, at any point in the day, basically, is what I'm understanding from what you're saying is the price tag of those rates change, which affects what you could choose from. So that 5% rate today, yeah, it might be $1,000, but tomorrow, what if it's $3,000? Now it's not a rate
Exactly.
you're able to choose.
We can't get specific in rates unless you call us individually and we consult,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when we can get specific with rates. Getting back to that anti-steering rule, there's 2 parts to that rule.
Anti-steering LO comp.
Yep, that put us on a set commission, a set amount. We have no financial interest in the rate or fees charged on a loan.
So if you
On a
choose a
mortgage loan.
higher rate out of the 3 available rates you're allowed to choose from on that particular day, that actually is turned into rebate towards you and your closing costs versus going towards our commission.
Correct. The 3 rates represent the reason they have to give you at least 3 different rates to choose from on the day you're allowed to legally lock in. That's when you're in contract. Represent 3 different market prices. So think of the low to high, and this is where it's a little different with the markets and rates right now, but this is for learning purposes. Think of the middle rate or rate option 1, or what most people quote you, which is what we call par rate. That's the rate where the price is 0. There's no cost. That's rare right now because of the markets and pricing, or we should say the closest rate to par, the cheapest rate with the cheapest money. That's really kind of how we're educating you right now.
But the what par is the average prime rate that you're going to get to every consumer. That's just what the banks and lenders are giving out that day is that rate, and that's what it is. Their standard market rate, their par rate.
So most loan originators are still quoting the old way, like here's your rate, and they're quoting that par or closest to par rate. Well, that's 1 out of the 3 options. The second option is above par, the higher rate, like Bobby was saying. That's the rate that has rebates or less of a cost, really depending on what you're getting. That's when you would have choose that to pay less. And a lot of times when rates were low, people were choosing the higher rates. Well, they were still good.
Yeah.
But, so option 2 is the rate with rebate. That's the higher rate.
Or above par.
Correct. Now with sellers helping out with seller credits, helping out buyers, the third rate option is the buy down rate. Kind of like you see commercials, they always flash a low rate and a higher APR next to it. And even though they're preaching no cost, well, that higher APR means buy down rate on an advertising.
And a buy down is another word for below par. Below par is a fancy way of saying buy down.
Below par, exactly. You're allowed to buy down so much. Then it's against, then there's laws preventing high cost and too much of a buy down. You're only allowed to buy down so much. So that's really where choosing the right rate, it's not on the loan originator is supposed to educate you about the different rates. And right now, the realtors with buyers and you first time home buyers, right now, it is very, with seller credits, that's usually covering most to all of the closing cost.
Oh, absolutely. And especially when you have a realtor who knows how to negotiate and, is a real friendly person and can make a connection with the seller and the seller's agent and, negotiate closing costs.
Yeah, realtor tips. If we're doing buy downs and getting a certain amount of seller credits, because the seller can give a lot of money to help the buyer.
Up to 6%.
There's specific wording that the banks and lenders are wanting on that contract, just saying, hey, not only for hard cost, but for discount cost or for interest rate buy down. That's definitely going, just because of how we do it on our end. Just a little mental note for you realtors.
You could use those seller credits to purchase your buy down.
Well, that's what it's for the buy down.
Yeah.
So for the rate buy down, you cannot use. Yeah, I know what you meant, but
Yeah.
you actually were trying to. You cannot use seller credits for down payment.
No, you cannot.
The down payment part has to come 3 entities. Has to come from your savings or any kind of asset you have, liquidable stocks, bonds, 401k. Not cash. Get the cash in the bank if you have it.
Yep. For 2 months.
It can come from a family member gifting it to you. The down payment can also come from down payment assistance, another little niche we have. So when you look up down payment assistance, you can look it all up. Call us for more details, but I think your last transaction, they didn't really pay anything.
They actually had a rebate to them after closing from their earnest money deposit because we used down payment assistance combined with seller credits.
So
I think it was a little less than 6%. 6% is the max of the purchase price.
It wasn't even close to that actually. But yeah, the only thing they paid out of pocket was to pay off a couple credit cards, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's all they had to do was they had to pay off a couple credit cards. It was less than $3,000 in total once they paid off debt, and that wasn't even towards like paying for the house itself. That was just paying off their debt so they could qualify.
Yeah, and if you're home buyers, if you can pull it off now, you're going to be the ones with the ideal payment when the markets improve. You're going to be the ones with the equity.
Yep.
Inventory. They're not building houses any faster. How long do you think they're going to raise rates? They've lowered it and lowered it, and they're putting pressure. Next election time, next election time, they're going to start tanking rates. Mm-hmm. And that's when the homeowners improve their payment who bought at the right time. So the fear mongers are saying don't buy when it's down, when the markets are down, don't buy when rates are up. This is what you've been waiting for.
Yep.
In California, with inventory, with what's going on, it's not going to get any better with inventory. There's not going to be a lot of people foreclosing like after 2008 when you didn't have to qualify with the 3 categories we talk about. It's a different market, it's a different time. So that's really important because there's our advantages. Those seller credits are huge. Saving $10,000 plus, I think that's what we're getting with a lot of sellers. On average, $10,000 plus. When rates were low, they were paying that.
Yeah, imagine coming in with that extra $10K versus having it paid for you.
Yeah, and now you have the right price. Because guess what? There's only, let's say rates, all right, let's go into a worst case scenario. Wait, did I give the news about February 1st?
No, I don't think so.
All right, feds are meeting again February 1st to raise rates again. Right now, we are below what rates really should be because of markets and what they're calling the inversion in the 10-year treasury.
Meaning rates are going to go up February 1st.
So February 1st, they're meeting again. Eventually, yes, we have that anomaly going on with the inversion, but how long will it last? This is a window to take advantage. This is a window when you can get below what you're seeing on the TV. Okay, this is with the program, especially that niche program. That's honestly one of the better rates with that niche program, that down payment assistance program Bobby was talking about.
I think down payment assistance is a great tool, but I also think that, obviously case by case, it's not the right program for everybody, but it can help anybody. It really is made for every person, first-time home buyer.
For most. There are some income limits.
So yeah, there are some limits to it, of course, and obviously you have to meet certain guidelines, but it's designed to be a tool to help people.
Exactly. Now let's go into a worst case. Let's fearmonger. Let's go what the fearmongers are telling us. They keep raising rates all year, and values tank. First-time home buyer, if you qualify right now for $300,000 and rates go up, do you think you'll qualify for $300,000 when rates go up later in the year?
No.
No.
If you qualify for $300,000 right now at today's rate,
for your max price,
when they go up, when rates go up, you will not qualify.
Yeah, if they go up, and it happens, if this market crash happens the way all these fearmongers are saying, all the investors who are still investing in real estate, by the way.
All the big dogs are buying.
What happens is us hardworking regular people, our buying power goes away. That's really the reality, what you're hearing out there. When you hear about the news and the new way, own nothing and be happy. No, you want to own where you live.
Yep. There's
nothing better. And it's one of the assets in our society in America. It's one piece of the puzzle, and an important piece of the puzzle, you might say. It's for all homeowners, it's a crucial piece of retirement, owning a home. Whether you're investing in real estate or not, I can't tell you multiple times how many seniors where that home has been the anchor to their retirement. Recently one who real life happens and you're on a fixed income, and then whether your home's paid off when you're retired or whether you have a lot of equity, or at that time, when the sooner you do it, the sooner you're going to get a cheaper payment when times are good, when rates are lower. What are you going to try to buy and compete when prices are higher and those lower rates are making it to where you have to buy higher? Because the prices where you can have so much equity and save so much when the time comes, versus not being a homeowner and trying to do it when really the experts never say it's the right time.
Yeah, they're always going to say, oh, it's not the right time, don't do this. Really, and we've been saying this religiously, the right time is whenever you could pull it off, aka whenever you could afford it, whenever you could get a pre-approval letter, whenever, I don't know what area some people are in, obviously, we're kind of talking to a
broad base of
really
people. Everybody in the high desert.
Yeah,
really anybody who desires to own a home.
Absolutely, and these are tips for anybody who wants to own a home.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I have a lot of same really conservative investors, real estate, Robert Kiyosaki, a lot of people on this radio station I listen to, but when you get to a level of certain money, yes, you will evolve if you evolve as a homeowner. But even just owning that home, that asset down the road.
It's an asset. It's not even a house, it's an asset.
It's a real asset.
Absolutely.
And let me tell you, again, right, how much, we can say it's going to tank even more, but will you be able to qualify for a loan? If it tanks hard enough, do you think that we're going to be able to get loans as easy?
No.
I was there after the 2008 crash, and
the only thing that happens is it gets stricter and stricter and stricter.
And harder and harder and harder.
Exactly.
And if they do tank like that, it's not because people are selling. They're going to hold on to their homes. The inventory is going to get worse. meaning no homes. There people, especially.
Because there's still a housing crisis. The ones that are for sale, they're still getting bought.
Yeah,
So
you think people aren't going to tucker down? They're tuckering down right now. The inventory hasn't came back. We have less home buyers because they're out of the market, not because they want to be. They were forced out. Trust me, California buyers right now, if they could buy, they would be buying.
Absolutely.
But the payment's so much higher from when they were, when they were looking, they were forced out. Because now the houses they were looking at in the 300s are still in the 300s.
But they can't afford the 300s anymore.
Exactly, if that was their max price.
Absolutely.
People don't take in consideration tax deductions, the interest you pay, and talk to a tax person. But the biggest tax deduction, a regular hard working, just trying to make it, that's one of your best tax deductions you can have. Starting with one house always leads to another.
Oh, absolutely. You have to get the first one. Now, however you get it is how you get it, but as long as you have it, then that's where you not only do you have a home base when you buy a house, but you have not only the freedom that you're talking about, of having a house and home ownership, but you're also a stepping stone to build off of it. You're gaining equity as, your first payment. Some people actually bought their home with equity already.
Yeah, and if investing in real estate, there's it's not minimum down payment. It's 20% down payment. It's having extra reserves in the bank. You build to that.
Yeah.
Obviously, unless you have a lot of, like you said, you have even with 300,000, you don't go and invest, and you start with the first house, and make where you live is as affordable as possible. When you're starting with nothing, you're working, you got the credit, you've been working, you have your income, monthly income, you could afford a certain amount, you've been saving, or hey, you just have a few thousand. That's where right now, if you can, especially the younger you are,
yes.
Because here's another factor.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
The faster you get it, the better.
Yeah, your balance is dropping. That your payments, principal and interest, simple interest. So you're gaining equity just by paying the balance down. So you're building equity in that way.
And what does equity lead to? More properties.
Yeah, it leads to being able to do more. It means to, a lot of families, what they'll do is they'll outgrow their current house. Perfect.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, and guess what? When you outgrow your house, it's great to, to be able to sell it. Oh, well, what if values are down? Well, we can rent it. Rents aren't going down.
I'm a firm believer in long-term investing. So in that specific situation that you mentioned, I would probably advise to keep the home even if prices were up and rent it out, because in the long run you will get more return.
Yeah, if you're renting and you're moving every year, is that fun? When you're buying your first house, first-time home buyers, you're usually going to be in there for a year to 3 years.
Well, imagine renting somewhere for 3 years, right? Even a year, and you're like, man, I like this house, I'm comfortable, I don't want to move. I got a nice little thing going, and all of a sudden someone kicks you out because it's not your house.
And let's be real.
That is terrible, and it happens. That's the messed up part, is it actually happens.
And you know what? This is the time, guys. This is when you can get the right price. And remember, if you can pull it off now, you might not be able to pull it off if it gets worse. So this is the people in 3 years who will be sitting with $100,000 equity, dropping their payment $500 to $1,000 when the time's right. Hey, we haven't shouted out enough. Guys, call us anytime. You're welcome to call us. Home buyers, if you're thinking about it, realtors, reach out to us, 760-669-7813. My NMLS number is 322918.
And mine is 2060902. Make sure you guys check out our YouTube channel at Mortgage Talk Podcast. We just uploaded a video today.